After a decade of isolation, an incredible single mom's unexpected entrance changes his life for. Mark sat on his porch, the brisk autumn air feeling both foreign and familiar. The vivid reds and oranges of the leaves swirled around him, a beautiful irony that only deepened his solitude. Once upon a time, he had walked these streets with his family, laughter echoing in the air. Now, memories caused a heaviness in his chest, like a weight he couldn't shake off. Every smile from families passing by stung like a fresh wound, a constant reminder of what he'd lost to his own demons. His life had dulled into a monotonous routine, filled with hours at the hardware store where he worked. It was a simple job, and it paid the bills, but it lacked any spark. Isolation wrapped around him like a thick fog, familiar and suffocating. He reveled in the stillness, finding a strange comfort in it, until one day, that tranquility shattered. A moving truck pulled up next door, its presence stirring the dust of his stagnant existence. Out stepped Sarah, a determined single mother with hopeful eyes that seemed to shine despite the burden she carried. She had escaped the clutches of an abusive relationship, her past heavy upon her shoulders. Mark noticed the way she took a deep breath, inhaling the fresh start and exhaling the remains of chaos. As she wrestled two young kids from the vehicle, his heart twitched. They met for the first time when he attempted to introduce himself. The paint can he'd been holding slipped through his fingers, splattering against the pavement like an embarrassing confession. "Sorry," he mumbled, heat creeping up his neck. The awkwardness hung palpably between them, her laughter rang out like a melody, beautiful yet bittersweet. It illustrated the contrasts of their lives. She was vibrant and alive, while he felt like a ghost, trapped in the sorrow of his silence. Days passed, the weather growing grimmer, foreshadowing the emotional storm brewing just beneath the surface. Then came the night when a tempest hit their small town with fury. The wind howled like something out of a nightmare, rain slashing against everything in its path. Mark's first instinct was to retreat into his shell, but as he glanced next door, he saw Sarah scrambling to keep her children sheltered. Fear gripped him, igniting an old, instinctual flame. He stumbled outside, propelled by a surge of purpose he hadn't felt in ages. "Get inside!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. They barely made it as the world outside erupted in chaos. Inside his living room, time stood still. The tremors of the storm heightened their fears, but they also opened a door for empathy. Mark's heart raced as Sarah's panic mirrored his own struggles. It was as if they found themselves in a battlefield together, united by their pasts. As the storm subsided, Mark and Sarah formed an unexpected bond amidst the wreckage of their lives. They shared stories cloaked in vulnerability, lending an ear to the other's pain. Together, they began to heal. But this fragile connection faced its own tempest. Mark's estranged brother called, seeking reconciliation, while dark reminders of Sarah's past threatened to pull her back under. Tension simmered, an electric charge in the air, as they stood at the edge of monumental change. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With their pasts looming over them like distant thunder, the moment hung heavy with uncertainty. Would Mark dare to let love in again? Could Sarah trust enough to embrace hope? Just as they faced their fears, the rumbling of thunder echoed in the distance, reminding them that transformation was both imminent and possible. In this quiet chaos, the promise of a new beginning awaited, and both longed to step into the light if they could only find the courage to turn and face it. The following evening, the air was still thick with the echoes of the storm. Mark leaned against his porch railing, watching the last golden rays of the sun dip below the horizon. The vibrant colors of dusk painted the sky, striking contrast to the turmoil he felt within. It was one of those moments when beauty clashed with inner chaos, leaving him feeling more lost than ever. He could hear the laughter of Sarah's children, two young lights in a world that was still dark for him. And it tugged at something deep inside, a flickering reminder of what joy might feel like. He had invited them over for dinner, an innocent gesture, yet it loomed heavy in his mind. What if the ghosts of his past shadowed this new beginning? What if he couldn't be the man Sarah seemed to see? Reluctantly, he walked inside, quiet and unsure, bracing himself for whatever lay ahead. An hour later, the doorbell rang. His heart jumped. Sarah stood there, the glow of the setting sun framing her figure, her children clinging to her like they were the ship in a storm. "Hi. I hope we're not late," she said, her smile illuminating the space more than the warm light of the kitchen could. Mark felt the tension in his chest ease just a bit. "Not at all. I just put the pasta on," he replied, stepping aside to let them in. The children dashed towards the living room, drawn by the comforts of a home that didn't feel like his. He could hear them giggling, the sound weaving through the silence that had settled around him for so long. Mark watched Sarah as she knelt to help them find their toys. There was a grace to her movements, a gentle strength that spoke of resilience. Laughter bounced off the walls like a joyful echo of everything he had pushed away. Dinner was a tapestry of awkward conversations and gentle smiles. Mark learned how to cook with a haste that betrayed his nerves, while Sarah effortlessly engaged the children as they began to explore the house. They shared stories, hers filled with warmth and vibrant colors, his dipped in shadow and quiet resignation, yet somehow, they met in the middle. As Mark watched Sarah talk and laugh with her kids, something in him stirred. The walls around his heart began to take cracks. But it felt like stepping into unknown waters, exhilarating yet terrifying. With each passing moment, his heart surged with hope, a sensation he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. But just as the atmosphere brightened, Mark's phone vibrated sharply on the table, cutting through laughter like a knife. He froze, the name flashing vividly, a name filled with pain, resentment, and unresolved history. It was his brother, the very person he had avoided like the plague for a decade. Calm washed over him like the waves of the sea as he locked eyes with Sarah. She tilted her head slightly, concern written across her features. He felt like the air had been sucked from the room. With one word from the past, everything could tumble down. His new connection, their fragile beginnings. Do I answer it? He thought, feeling his heart race like a runaway train, crashing toward unknown tracks. Are you okay? Sarah's voice pulled him back. But this time, the familiar weight of fear sat heavier than before, leaving him to wrestle with a decision that could either bridge their paths or tear them apart. As he gradually reached for his phone, the storm within him mirrored the thunder that rolled outside once more. The whisper of hope mingled with the shadow of his past, both vying for his attention. Would he choose to face his demons, or would he let this moment slip away? In that charged silence, with the phone vibrating in his palm, Mark had to decide who he wanted to be. His next move could change everything. Mark's fingers hovered over the screen, hesitation creeping into his veins. He could hear the distant laughter of Sarah's kids in the other room, a symphony of innocence and joy. The phone's vibration felt like a taunt, a reminder of a world he had tried so hard to escape. For a split second, everything blurred, the colors of the room, the sounds of the children, even Sarah's concerned gaze. The past flared up like a wildfire, memories of arguments, accusations, and regret crashing into his mind. He had convinced himself that silence was better, that the scars of his history were too deep to ever mend, but was that truly the case? Was he still the same man, stuck in a loop of pain? He took a deep breath, letting the air fill his lungs, a stark contrast to the crushing weight of fear gripping him. Mark. Sarah's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Her tone was soft, patient, as if she knew he was battling more than just a phone call. You can talk to him, if that's what you want. I'll be here. Her assurance wrapped around him, a lifeline thrown into the turbulent waters of his mind. He glanced at her, really looked at her, the way her hair swung softly as she leaned closer, the empathy shining in her eyes. In that moment, he felt seen, not just as a man with baggage, but as someone deserving of a chance. With a shaky exhale, he answered the call. The moment he pressed accept, a rush of emotion flooded him. The voice on the other end was familiar yet foreign. It was his brother, Ben. "Hey, Mark," Ben's voice cracked like a dry branch, and there was an awkward pause that felt heavy. "I know it's been a long time." Mark clenched his jaw, bracing himself. "What do you want, Ben?" The words tasted harsh, but they carried the weight of years of hurt. I wanted to apologize," Ben stammered, vulnerability spilling through his usual bravado. "I've messed up a lot, and I've missed you. I need to talk." Mark glanced back at Sarah. She offered him a small nod, her support anchoring him as he processed the words. A part of him wanted to reject the olive branch, to tell Ben it was too late, but something deeper urged him to listen, to acknowledge the change he had yearned for himself. "Maybe we can meet?" Ben continued, a hint of desperation in his tone. "I know it won't fix everything, but I want to try." The air thickened with tension. Mark could feel the weight of both their histories pressing down around him. Could he bring Ben back into his life without shattering the fragile peace he had barely begun to nurture? What if this brought back all the pain? The muffled laughter from the other room swirled around him, reminding him of what was at stake. "Where?" Mark asked, surprising even himself with how steady his voice sounded. "Your old diner," Ben replied softly. "Same booth." "Fine," Mark agreed, his heart pounding. "But we're doing this on my terms." As he ended the call, the silence felt different this time, not deafening, but filled with possibility. Sarah approached him, her expression inquisitive. "Are you all right?" He nodded, his mind swirling with a cocktail of anxiety and hope. I think it's time to confront some things." Sarah placed a hand on his arm, an anchor in this storm. "Well, whatever happens, you have me." With a half smile, Mark felt the first real hope in a long time. Maybe he could face the storm. Maybe the light ahead wasn't just a flicker, but a way forward. But as he prepared for what lay ahead, another thought tugged at him. Was he truly ready for that conversation? Would it reshape everything he had begun to build? In that moment, the uncertainty loomed large, whispering promises of potential heartbreak or healing, and he knew the next step would define them all. Mark stared blankly at the screen, the call with Ben still echoing in his mind. Even though he had hung up, it felt like a pebble thrown into still water, the ripples spreading further than he could have anticipated. Sarah watched him closely, searching for any sign of a crack in his armor. "Do you want me to go with you?" she asked gently, her voice a balm against the chaotic thoughts racing through him. He shook his head. "No. I need to do this alone." As much as he appreciated her offer, this was a storm he had to weather by himself. He didn't want her to feel the weight of his past. But in the silence growing between them, he felt both gratitude and dread. If only he could harness the power of courage he once felt, a long time ago. He took a deep breath, pushing himself off the couch as if gaining momentum against an invisible force. The kids were still laughing in the other room, their voices a sweet reminder of what he had to fight for. A wave of warmth washed over him, and he couldn't help but smile faintly. They were joy personified, yet they made the shadows in his heart feel heavier. "Want me to make you a coffee before you leave?" Sarah asked, and Mark appreciated the normalcy of her request. "No, I'm good. Just keep the kids busy." He turned his back to her, wanting to shield her from the potential fallout. As he walked toward the door, the weight of his decision loomed larger than ever. He could still send a text or cancel at the last minute. But as he reached for the doorknob, something held him back. Maybe it was the realization that he had spent too long running from his past and possibly from Ben. The diner was only a few minutes away, yet each red light felt like an eternity. Images of their childhood flickered in his mind like an old film reel, moments laden with laughter but also feuding. Their lives had been intertwined, yet he'd spent so long trying to cut that bond. "What the hell am I doing?" he muttered under his breath as he parked. For a moment, he considered leaving, but he felt a pulse of energy, a reminder of the purpose driving him. Entering the diner, the familiar smell of greasy fries and coffee hit him, a mix of nostalgia and nerves. He spotted Ben sitting at their old table, his back turned. The booth was reserved for old memories, it felt almost sacred. But this was far from the way it had been. "Mark," Ben said without turning, his voice weary and laced with regret. "I didn't think you'd actually come." Taking a deep breath, Mark slid into the booth across from him. The space felt sparse, the air heavy with unspoken words and lingering tension. "Let's just get this over with. I know I've hurt you, and I'm sorry," Ben began, his eyes filled with sincerity that struck Mark like a bolt of lightning. "It's been too long, and you think an apology fixes everything?" Mark shot back, his voice louder than he meant it to be. "You think you can just walk back into my life like nothing happened?" Ben flinched slightly but maintained eye contact. "No, I don't expect it to be easy. I want to understand." Mark felt his heart twist. Could Ben be sincere? Was he ready to drop the burdens they had carried for so long? As anger bubbled alongside a flicker of hope, he realized something vital. It wasn't merely about forgiveness, but also rebuilding. Just when they seemed to reach a fragile understanding, a familiar face entered the diner, drawing Mark's attention away. Sarah stood outside, peering in, a look of uncertainty crossing her features. Mark's heart raced. What was she doing here? A surge of panic gripped him as he thought about the fragile conversation with Ben. Would Sarah enter, disrupting every inch of progress he was trying to make? "Mark?" Ben's voice pulled him from his thoughts, and he turned back to see his brother watching him closely. "What's wrong?" The truth loomed before him like an unspoken promise or a veiled threat. Could he really do this? Could he let his past bleed into his present when Sarah might alter everything? Just as he considered the answer, the diner door swung open again, and in stepped someone unexpected, someone who held the potential to change everything. What did this newcomer want? How would their presence ripple through the fragile moment Mark finally decided to take? All he could do was sit there caught in the web of past and present, desperate for clarity in the chaos. The moment the door swung wide, a gust of fresh air carried in the unmistakable scent of spring, mingling with the grease of the diner. Mark's heart lodged in his throat as he took in the figure stepping inside. Sarah's complexion shifted to one of concern, but Mark was immobilized, his eyes locked on the newcomer, a woman with fiery red hair and an infectious smile that lit up the room. "Is this seat taken?" she asked, gesturing to the empty booth beside Mark, seemingly oblivious to the tension surrounding him and Ben. Mark's first instinct was to shout, to tell her to leave, that this wasn't the right moment. But something about her presence felt like a lifeline, an unexpected twist in a narrative he thought he had already written. "No, not at all," he managed, his voice shaky. As she slid in, the atmosphere lightened slightly. The woman introduced herself as Jenna, a single mom who'd just moved back to town. She owned a small bakery a few streets away and was looking for some lunch before diving into baking for the busy weekend ahead. With a nervous laugh, she started to chat about her new life and the struggles of getting her business off the ground. Mark struggled to follow the flow of her words, his focus still split between her cheerful demeanor and the weighty tension across from him. Ben was watching Jenna with a kind of curiosity that seemed out of place. Mark felt the fragile wall he had started to build between himself and Ben crack just a little more. "Sounds like you're pretty busy," Ben interjected, his tone softer than before. "Must be a challenge, starting fresh." Jenna's eyes sparkled as she spoke. "It is, but I like challenges. Life's a series of doughs to knead, just like baking, right? You can't just throw in the ingredients and hope for the best. You've got to work for it." Her passion sparked something in Mark. He recalled his own challenges, the way he often avoided them, freezing in fear instead of confronting them. The idea of kneading life into something wonderful resonated deep within him. Perhaps there was a way to reshape his relationship with Ben, just as Jenna reshaped her doughs. "I guess we all have our battles," Mark replied, his voice sounding steadier, even as he captured Ben's gaze, searching for some shared recognition of their past. The shadows of their childhood loomed large, yet here, amidst the warmth radiating from Jenna, Mark felt a stir of hope. "Yeah, but you know what they say," Jenna continued, "sometimes it's the messiest mixes that turn into the most amazing recipes. We might be sitting in a diner, but each one of us is capable of cooking up something special, even after all the heartbreak." Mark shared a fleeting smile with Ben, who seemed to absorb her words. The ice between them was thinning, and Mark felt a spark of connection, one that had been devoid for too long. Still, the conversation remained precarious, a tightrope walk between years of bitterness and a new potential for reconciliation. Just when the air filled with a hint of camaraderie, another figure entered the diner. An older man with a stoic face and a familiar silhouette stepped in, catching Mark off guard. The man stepped up to the counter, appearing nonchalant, but the recognition sent a jolt through Mark's chest. "What is he doing here?" Ben muttered, his brows furrowed in concern. Mark's pulse quickened. The unexpected reappearance of their father after so many years of silence felt like a twist of fate. Would this further complicate the fragile peace they were trying to form, or could it be the final ingredient they needed to heal? The unease in the diner thickened as Jenna's laughter faded, replaced by whispers of surprise. Mark's mind raced, and he met Ben's eyes again, searching for a glimmer of understanding. Was their father the missing piece to their reconciliation, or would he shatter what they had begun to rebuild? Mark's heart pounded, every instinct telling him to prepare for turmoil. The backdrop of the diner began to fade as all eyes gravitated to the man's looming presence. What would he say that could change everything once again? Mark held his breath as their father approached the counter, a figure once larger than life now reduced to a ghost from the past. Years had worn him down, leaving an air of resignation around his shoulders. The waitresses continued to pour coffee and deliver plates, but the energy had shifted, coiling tight around Mark and Ben. "Dad," Ben's voice was barely above a whisper, laced with an edge of disbelief. There was no warmth, just the chill of unresolved anger hanging between them. Mark glanced at Jenna. Her bright eyes darted between the brothers, sensing the shift in the air. She offered a small encouraging smile, her enthusiasm dimmed but not defeated. "Is all of this really necessary?" Mark finally whispered, feeling an odd mix of panic and a flicker of hope. In that moment, he couldn't help but wish for Jenna's courage, to take this moment head-on rather than retreating into the shadows of their past. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble," their father said, voice low and rough like gravel. He didn't meet their eyes. There was a hesitation, an unwillingness to step fully into the light that Jenna had so easily embraced. "I know I messed up." "Messing up doesn't quite cover it," Ben shot back, bitterness coated in hurt. Mark could sense the tremor in Ben's clenched fists. He knew the years of silence had created a chasm between them, one that might not be bridgeable, no matter the intentions. "We need to talk," their father insisted, his tone insistent but edged with regret. "Not just in passing. There's so much to say." Mark felt the weight of anger and betrayal flooding back over him. This stranger had abandoned them, leaving them to figure out life alone. The hunger for a father had been replaced by a burning need for closure. With his heart racing, he squeezed his hands together, searching for the words that had eluded him for so long. "And what makes you think we want to hear it?" Mark's voice broke, full of emotion and vulnerability. His body felt tense, on the edge of confrontation. The past echoed in his mind, the hurt and the longing, and it felt like time had twisted back to when they were kids, seeking a father who never showed up. Jenna shifted in her seat, her presence suddenly a hot flame against the cold atmosphere. "This isn't a circus," she said softly, yet firmly. "It's a diner, and you can't just waltz in and demand a seat at the table after disappearing for years. You owe them more than that." Her words rang in the silent diner, resonating with clarity. Mark turned to her, surprised, and met her unwavering gaze. There was something fierce in her, not just a determination but a belief in redemption. Their father swallowed hard, visibly crushed under the weight of Jenna's pointed honesty. "I know I owe a lot," he began, but Mark interrupted, feeling a surge of empowerment. "Then prove it," Mark challenged, his heart pounding. Prove you mean it. Show us you're willing to fight for a place in our lives. Ben shifted uncomfortably, the tension radiating between them electrified by uncertainty. Mark's challenge hung in the air like the smoke from the diner kitchen, thick and heavy but not insurmountable. Would their father rise to meet this moment or retreat into the shadows once again? Jenna tapped her fingers against the table, a sign of anxious anticipation mixed with resilience. Mark felt that spark of connection flicker to life again, but would it be enough to carry them through this? Before their father could reply, the diner door swung open again, introducing a fresh wave of customers. Mark could hear their chatter mixing with the low murmur surrounding their table. But the weight of expectation lingered, amplifying the silence that followed. As their father finally raised his gaze, the waitress approached, coffee pot in hand. The entire diner paused, aware that something monumental was at stake. Mark held his breath, waiting to see if this would be the moment of confrontation they desperately needed or simply another opportunity lost to years of regret. What choice would their father make in this crucial moment? Would he take a step forward, or would he slip back into the void he had created? The moment stretched out, heavy with anticipation. Mark stole a glance at Ben, who wore a mask of defiance mixed with vulnerability. His brother's jaw was set tight, and Mark could feel the crackling tension. It was as if all of them were standing on the precipice of something they could neither define nor escape. "Look, I know I messed up," their father said again, this time more defeated, a hint of pleading in his voice. "But I've changed. I'm trying to change." What you're trying to do isn't enough," Ben interrupted, his voice sharper now. "You think coming back after all these years and pretending everything can just be normal again is going to work? It doesn't. It's not a fairy tale. You can't just rewrite the story you abandoned." The diner around them buzzed with life, plates clattered, laughter rippled through the air, and the smell of pancakes and bacon wafted enticingly. Yet Mark felt as if they were encased in a bubble, insulated from the world beyond their immediate pain. Would they ever emerge? Would their father? "This is not something that gets fixed over a cup of coffee," Jenna chimed in, a firmness in her voice that made Mark's heart race. She leaned closer, her eyes focused intently on their father. "You don't understand the impact of your absence. It's not just words anymore. It's what you do now that counts." Their father flinched under her gaze. He looked small, weakened by the truth. Was he truly there to reconcile? Mark wondered if hope could survive in this shattered world. But a flicker of something broke through, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, they could find a path forward together. "I'm not asking for forgiveness just yet. I know that might take years," their father said, his voice barely a whisper now. "I just want a chance to explain. To at least say I'm sorry. You need to understand that." A sudden clatter interrupted him. A couple of diners knocked over a chair, laughter spilling over. Mark's eyes flicked back to his father, who was still processing Jenna's words. He could see the shame curling in the corners of his father's mouth, a silent battle waging within. "Then start by being honest," Mark urged, his heart racing in his chest. "Tell us what really happened. Why did you leave us? Why did you choose to stay gone?" Silence followed, thick and oppressive. The weight of years hung heavy over their table. Mark's breath caught as he realized the truth was finally bubbling to the surface. Would their father find the courage to reveal it? Jenna placed a hand on Mark's arm, an anchor amid the storm brewing within him. He felt grounded by her presence as he turned his gaze back to their father. It was his turn to speak, and for the first time, Mark felt a tremor of hope. Then their father's eyes glazed over, revealing a haunted past. "It wasn't what you think." Just as he began to delve deeper, the diner's door swung open again, the bell ringing loudly. A woman rushed in, short on breath. She looked around frantically, and for a moment, Mark thought she might recognize them. There was something electrifying about her, the way she carried herself, an energy that felt familiar. Mark's heart jolted, an instinctive reaction to this new, unexpected entry. The woman locked eyes with their father, and he froze, disbelief etched across his face. It was as if he had seen a ghost. "Michael?" she whispered, stepping toward their table with an urgency that made the hairs on Mark's neck stand. The tension snapped like a rubber band, ricocheting off the walls of the diner. Who was this woman? Why did she seem to have such a hold on their father? Mark could feel shadows shifting as old secrets threatened to surface in a whirlwind of emotion. What had she come to reveal in this already tumultuous moment? The diner seemed to hold its breath. Conversations faded into whispers as eyes turned toward the woman who had burst in, each patron sensing the weight of the moment. Mark felt the pressure of the world around him, the din of forks and knives replaced by the steady thumping of his heart. "Michael," she said again, a tremor in her voice. There was a heartbreaking desperation to her tone, one that resonated deeply in Mark. Who was this woman, and how was she connected to the man who had hurt them so deeply? Their father's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. His eyes darted back and forth between the woman and his kids, caught between the past he ran from and the family he had failed. Mark held his breath, the air thick and hard to swallow. "Do you know her?" Ben's voice cut through the haze, a mix of anger and confusion. Mark glanced at his brother, whose body language radiated tension, fists clenched on the table. "Of course he knows me," the woman replied, her resolve building, a mix of sorrow and strength pooling in her gaze. "I'm someone who never stopped waiting. Michael, we need to talk." "Talk?" Ben echoed incredulously. "Talk about what? You think this is some kind of reunion? We don't owe you anything." "Ben, stop," Mark said sharply, sensing a flicker of vulnerability in their father's eyes. "Let her speak. Let us hear what she has to say." The woman's expression softened as she turned her attention fully to their father. "Michael, they deserve to know the truth. You can't hide it any longer. This isn't just about what happened between us. It's about them. They deserve answers." For a moment, it was as if time froze. Mark wanted to resist. He wanted to pull Ben back from the edge of this emotional cliff they were teetering on. Yet, a part of him curious and hungry for closure urged him to stay. "Don't even try to defend yourself," Ben shot back, but his voice trembled. "You weren't there for us, and now you just want to play this off as some fairy tale." The woman stepped closer, her intense gaze focused on Ben. "I'm not here to take him from you. I'm here because I couldn't just walk away. I thought he needed time to heal, but things got out of control." "What do you mean?" Mark pressed, his own confusion battling the rising anger, the pieces of this tangled family history slipping further from his grasp. "I thought he would come back when he was ready. When we had everything worked out," she said slowly. "I thought I was protecting you both, but in the end, it only pushed him further away. I was wrong." The acknowledgement fell between them like a heavy stone. Mark could see his father's shoulders tremble slightly, the weight of old regrets pressing down on him. The room filled with a heavy silence, punctuated only by the sporadic clinking of dishes farther down the counter. Suddenly, Jenna stood, her expression a mix of defiance and compassion. "You can't keep playing the blame game. If you truly want to reconnect, then all of you." She looked at their father, the woman, and then back to Mark and Ben. "You need to face what happened head on." "Face it?" Ben scoffed, disbelief written all over his face. "How can any of us face something that's been buried for so long?" "I can help," the woman said softly, her voice trembling, yet filled with resolve. "I've carried this secret for too long, and it's time to let it go. For all our sakes." Mark's heart raced. What the woman was hinting at felt like a Pandora's box, somehow both terrifying and liberating at the same time. Would they finally learn the truth? Could it bring them closure, help them piece together the fragments of their shattered past? Just as hope flickered, their father finally spoke up, his voice hoarse. "What do you mean? What do you know?" Her eyes shone with tears, and in a moment that felt both ominous and beautiful, she whispered, "Everything." As the words fell between them, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting, this moment, would change everything forever. The truth was about to unravel. Would they be strong enough to handle it? The night had only just begun. The diner felt even colder now, the tension coiling tighter like a spring ready to snap. A low murmur began to ripple through the other patrons, their forks and knives forgotten as they leaned in, drawn into the tangled web unfolding before them. Mark's heart raced. The anticipation hung heavy, thickening the air as if the walls themselves were straining to hear the truth. Seconds felt like hours as the woman stared at Michael, her eyes glistening with an ocean of emotions. "After all these years, it's time for you to stop running from this," she said at last. "You can't keep pretending it didn't happen. There are things about your past that you've never faced, but you're not alone anymore. I'm here." The crack in Michael's facade widened, and for the first time, Mark saw a flicker of fragility beneath that hardened exterior. It was as if he had stepped back into the version of his father he barely remembered, the father who had once held them close, taught them how to ride bikes, and kissed their foreheads goodnight. "You don't know what you're asking," he mumbled, almost to himself. Jenna took a step forward, her face lit with compassion. "We want to help you, Dad. Just be honest with us. We deserve that, don't we?" Ben shook his head defiantly. "What, so he can lie to us again? This is just another trick, another way to keep us in the dark." Mark's voice trailed off, uncertainty mingling with his resolve. Instead of joining his brother's outrage, he felt an odd sense of connection to the woman, as if they shared the burden of carrying the truth alone for far too long. "Please," she urged, her voice cracking. "I didn't come here to hurt anyone. I only came to fulfill my promise. The promise I made long ago to keep you both safe." Mark's pulse quickened. The promise hung in the air between them like a whisper from the past, beckoning him closer. "Safe from what?" he asked, the question spilling out before he could stop himself. The woman glanced toward Michael, her gaze filled with pleading. "I knew him when he was still figuring things out. There were choices he made, choices that affected all of us. Choices we all need to confront. I can't do this," Michael breathed out, his voice barely a whisper as he leaned against the counter for support. Mark's fingers instinctively tightened around the edge of the table, his mind racing through memories and shadows he had buried deep. For a fleeting moment, Mark wanted to bolt, to grab Ben and flee from this suffocating reality. Yet, the yearning for answers pulled him in like a magnet. "We're already here," he pressed gently. "We deserve to hear it." The woman took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. "It's about a decision I made, one that put your family on a path no one expected. The secret has haunted me, and it's time to set it free. What I know about your mother, it could change everything." The mention of their mother made Mark's stomach churn. The loss, the unanswered questions, all of it came rushing back with stark clarity. He exchanged a glance with Ben. Behind the simmering anger, there were echoes of regret, a desire for healing, if not for understanding. Mark felt his heart race, the realization dawning like dawn breaking through a long night. What if this was the key to unlocking the years of silence, the years of longing for closure? "Tell us," Mark urged, leaning forward. "We're ready to hear the truth, no matter what it is." As the words settled, the woman locked eyes with Michael, a mixture of fear and determination battling for dominance. Was she ready? All eyes fell on her, hearts pounding in unison, as the room thickened with promise and dread. And then she took a slow breath, ready to unveil the darkness that had haunted them all. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, the bell above the diner door jingled. A rush of cold air swept in, drawing their attention away at the most critical moment, leaving them all hanging on the edge of an unspoken truth. Who had just walked in? Would the interruption steal away their chance for answers, or would it lead them down another unexpected path? The bell rang sharply, a stark intrusion into the charged atmosphere. Mark's heart raced as he turned his head slightly toward the entrance, fear clawing at his chest. A young woman stepped inside, dripping wet, hair clinging to her face in disarray, as thunder rumbled faintly outside. Her eyes darted around the diner, landing on their table, the family table, where past and present collided, spirits clashing like waves against the shore. "Is everything okay?" she asked breathlessly, striding forward with intention. Those words hung in the air, pulling everyone's attention away from the crux of the moment. The urgency in her voice cut through the tension, shivering their fragile scene into a new disarray. "Yeah, we're fine," Michael said, instinctively retreating, his gaze avoiding hers as he tried to mask the turmoil within. There was something about this newcomer, an undeniable energy, that drew the attention of the entire diner. "I just wanted some coffee," she replied, her voice trembling slightly not just from the cold. Mark felt her need to connect, as if she sensed the heaviness lingering at their table. The waitress approached, distracted from her tasks by the intrigue of the scene unfolding. At that moment, everyone felt weighty eyes upon them, sharing the collective heartbeat of curiosity. "Get her a coffee," Jenna's voice sliced through like a gentle blade. "And let us breathe for a moment." "Right," the waitress nodded, retreating quickly, her steps quickening under the tension. As the young woman took a seat at the counter, she seemed oblivious to the emotional fracture playing out just a few feet away. "I really hope you're all okay. You look." She paused, assembling her words, really deep in thought. "I've been watching storms roll in, too, so I get it." "What do you want, really?" Ben interjected, irritation bubbling at the interruption. "Wow, someone is on edge," she replied, responding with light-heartedness that sent a ripple of laughter across a few tables. "Maybe you'll find out if you let me talk." Mark felt a flicker in his chest. She was radiating a strange warmth, an easygoing nature that reminded him of the life he once had. "Just sit tight," Mark murmured to Ben, glancing at their father. This moment still had potential. They were all facing their truths. Perhaps the stranger was the unpredictable element they needed to deflate the drowning emotions. The woman took a deep breath, tossing her wet hair back, highlighting a determination in her eyes. "So, I accidentally interrupted whatever drama is going down here," she began, smiling softly. "But maybe that's fate's way of pulling the curtain on something new." "Are you for real?" Ben replied skeptically, though the hint of curiosity in his tone suggested he softened just slightly. "Life's messy, right?" she continued, a grin spreading across her face like a sunrise. "And you've got to roll with it. This storm," she added, gesturing towards the windows where rain cascaded violently, "it reminds us that weather clears and life goes on. Maybe you've got to face this gathering storm for clarity to break through." There, amidst an unexpected moment, Mark felt at the weightlessness in the air, the blooming hope. "What's your name?" he found himself asking. It was an invitation rather than a formality. "Lila," she responded, genuine and buoyant. "I recently moved back to town. Just trying to find my way, like everyone else." "Is anyone else going to talk?" Sarah chimed in, her warmth drawing more attention. With a glance back to Mark, the conversation opened pathways, a chance to breathe as one collective force. Mark looked at Ben, then at Michael, feeling the energy shift among them. This new person had disrupted their storm and brought a flicker of energy unexpected, and for the first time in years, he could see his brother's frozen posture begin to shift slightly. "Maybe this isn't just about the past," Mark said, his voice solid. "It's about who we want to become." "I don't know about any of you," Ben interjected, gripping the edge of the table slightly, "but I want to be family again." He gestured widely, "all of this can't just be empty talk." There was resolve in Ben's voice, spurred on by Lila's vibrant spirit. "Okay," their father finally broke into the conversation, voice cracking once more. "I'm willing to share everything if you all want to hear." Tony, the older man at the counter, who had been watching with quiet fascination, whispered to his wife, "Looks like the storm has not just rolled in, but is ready to clear the skies." Mark, sensing the shift, nodded to Michael. "Now is the time to let go, Dad." With Lila's unexpected arrival reframing the moment, the tempest shifted. Acceptance had unlocked a door that had long been shut. As Michael readied himself to delve into the cracks of their fractured past, the diner felt like more than just a backdrop. it had become a crucible for healing. And perhaps, just perhaps, clarity was finally breaking through the clouds. For the first time, Mark didn't feel alone in this storm. He felt the cracks of his own heart begin to mend right before their eyes. As Michael finally took a deep breath and began to speak, Mark quietly squeezed Jenna's hand, knowing that this journey forward, chaotic and unpredictable, was exactly what they needed. That night, amid the clatter of dishes and a brewing sense of camaraderie, the pieces of their lives began to come together. And with that, began a new chapter of hope where shadows didn't rule. And if you felt even a hint of that warmth spread across your heart, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to see how their incredible journey unfolds. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find this transformation. Comment below to share your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let us keep that conversation alive, and don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this. Because true fans know, every action counts in amplifying these stories and building a community like no other.